My name is Stella Morrison, and I am 34 years old. If there is one place in the world where I feel like I can truly breathe, it is the old wooden house on the outskirts of Vermont. It once belonged to my grandmother, Margaret, the strongest woman I have ever known. Each time I walk through the faded wooden gate and hear the wind rustling through the fiery red maple leaves, I feel like I am returning to my true self. Grandma Margaret passed away 6 years ago at the age of 87. I thought I had lost everything when she was gone. But in her will, she left me the entire country house, along with a handwritten letter several pages long. I still remember the day of the reading. The air in the lawyer's office was heavy as lead. My parents and my younger sister Charlotte were all there. When my name was mentioned, every eye turned toward me surprised, but also tinged with resentment. Her letter made my throat tighten. The handwriting trembled, but the message was firm. Stella, this house is yours. Since you were a child, I saw how deeply you bonded with every brick, every row of vegetables in the garden. I trust only you to keep its spirit alive. Don't let anyone take it away from you, not even family. Especially family. As I read those lines, tears ran down my face. It was as though she had seen into the future, leaving me not only the house, but also a warning. The house was built in the 1940s with thick oak walls, a steep roof of dark shingles, and wooden floors that shone after countless polishings. It had 3 cozy bedrooms, a living room with a stone fireplace, and a kitchen that always carried the scent of cinnamon and dried apples, her favorite. Behind it stretched more than an acre of garden, red apples in summer, heavy snow in winter. At the far end stood an old shed that she had turned into a sewing workshop, sometimes also the place where she told me stories of long ago. My childhood was tied to that house. Every summer, from June to the end of August, I stayed with her. During the day, I helped plant vegetables, pull weeds, and learned how to tie tomato vines so they wouldn't break. At night, we sat together on the porch swing, listening to the crickets in the meadow. She often held my hand and said warmly, "Stella, your kindness is precious, but don't let anyone turn it into a trap. You must learn to say no, even to family. Especially to family." As a child, I didn't understand, only nodded. Later, I realized her words were almost prophetic. When she passed, many thought I would sell the house to invest. But I didn't. I saved every dollar from my job as a real estate consultant to restore it. I replaced the plumbing, rewired the electricity, polished the old wooden floors, and replanted the garden with seeds she had carefully stored in a tin box. Every weekend, I drove nearly 2 hours from Boston to Vermont, staying there until Sunday evening. To me, it wasn't just a house, it was the only place where I felt heard. Even though the listener was no longer there, my family felt differently. My parents lived comfortably in a modern suburban home near Boston, with every convenience. They never cared for my grandmother's house. To them, it was old, distant, and useless. Charlotte, even less so. She only cared about malls, trendy coffee shops, and endless parties. The wooden house was never part of her world. That's why, when Grandma left it all to me, they were shocked, even a little bitter. I still remember my mother's look that day, a flicker of disappointment quickly hidden by a faint smile. My father tapped his fingers on the table, his eyes drifting as though calculating something. Charlotte exhaled sharply, shot me a glance, and said nothing. I had grown used to being overlooked, labeled the daughter who did good work without needing praise, while Charlotte was the golden child. But at that moment, I felt a shift. From the one ignored, I suddenly held what they all wanted. Her letter haunted me for years. Those lines weren't just trust, they were a reminder. Don't let anyone take this house from you. I thought I understood her. I guarded that house with all my heart, without any ulterior motive. But I never imagined that the first ones to try and turn that inheritance into their tool would be my very own parents and sister. I grew up in a family where affection was never balanced. My parents, the Morrisons, always gave special attention to Charlotte, my younger sister, 6 years my junior. Even as a child, I knew that in their eyes, Charlotte was the shining gem while I was just a shadow standing beside her. Back in elementary school, I tried my best to impress them. I won first prize in a district writing contest, and my teachers praised me for my talent. Excited, I brought the award home, hoping my parents would be proud. But my father only muttered, "Good. Now go help your mother set the table." The very next day, Charlotte was chosen to dance in her preschool spring recital. The whole family cheered, my parents took endless photos, even inviting relatives to watch. I stood quietly in the back row, forcing a smile when someone asked, "She's smart too, isn't she?" That favoritism only became clearer as we grew older. I buried myself in studies, worked part-time at the library, determined to get into college on scholarships. Meanwhile, Charlotte quit piano, switched to painting, then decided she preferred dance. Every time she lost interest and walked away, my parents had an excuse ready. "Charlotte needs to explore. She has an artistic soul," my mother would say, as though repeated failures were something to admire. I looked at my calloused hands from long shifts and said nothing. When it was my turn for college, I had to manage tuition through loans and part-time jobs. I didn't complain, I thought it was simply my responsibility. But when Charlotte's time came, my parents gladly pulled a large sum from their retirement fund so she could attend a private art school in New York. "Investing in Charlotte's dream is essential," my father declared. Hearing that felt like a door slamming shut in my face. Was my dream worth less? In the years that followed, I became the responsible one. When Charlotte's first gallery project failed, my mother cried, my father sighed, and then they turned to me. "Can you help her with some money to get back on her feet?" I agreed, just to avoid more blame. When Charlotte broke up with her boyfriend and came home distraught, I was the one who cleaned up, took her out to eat, and comforted her. But whenever I advanced in my career or hit a milestone, all I got was a nod and a quick change of subject. One moment is etched in my mind. I had just closed a major real estate deal, with a commission large enough to pay off my student loans. Excited, I shared the news at family dinner. My father looked up and said, "That's nice. But did you hear Charlotte got invited to be a contributor for an art magazine? We're so proud." Suddenly, the whole table buzzed about Charlotte, and I was pushed aside in my own story. This favoritism didn't just make me feel invisible, it taught Charlotte to expect everything as her right. She was used to being praised without effort, excused when she failed, and supported without ever standing on her own. Meanwhile, I had to build everything by myself. I once thought this unfairness was a small matter, that as long as I lived steadily, it didn't matter. But I realized it had shaped me into the caretaker, while Charlotte became the pampered one. Once, when I refused to lend her money for another project, Charlotte looked straight at me, her blue eyes gleaming with challenge. "You're rich. Why are you so selfish? You know, Mom and Dad always expect you to help me. That's natural." I was speechless. That so-called natural was the state, product of years of parental favoritism. Those memories resurfaced vividly when I read Grandma Margaret's letter. I began to understand why she had stressed, "Don't let anyone take this house from you, especially family." She knew the imbalance in my household. She knew that if there was anything that belonged to me, my parents and Charlotte would find a way to claim it. Throughout my childhood and young adulthood, I was always the shadow behind Charlotte. But with this house, I swore I would never let anyone erase my place again. I never thought that happy news in the family could make me feel such bitterness. Charlotte had just announced to everyone that she was pregnant, a piece of news that sent my parents into uncontrollable excitement. I was glad for her at first, but that joy quickly turned into overwhelming pressure. That very evening during family dinner, the air was filled with forced cheer, but I could sense the schemes hidden in every word. "Stella," my mother began in a saccharine tone that made my skin crawl. "Do you know Charlotte is going to be a mother?" We need to help her have a stable place to live. My father nodded, his eyes lighting up, and I knew right away they were about to make an outrageous request. What do you mean? I asked, holding back my irritation. Without hesitation, my mother said, "We think that Grandma Margaret's country house, would be a great amount of money for Charlotte to buy a new apartment. Could you sell it?" My heart nearly stopped. Sell the house? The house my grandmother left me with her letter saying, "Protect it. Don't let anyone take advantage of you, not even family." This was my legal inheritance, unrelated to Charlotte, and they knew it. Yet their eyes seemed to say, "You won't be able to fight this. Mom, Dad, this is my property." "Margaret left it to me, not to Charlotte," I said, trying to stay calm though my voice trembled. My father cleared his throat and pressed each word. "Sweetheart, try to understand. Charlotte is about to become a mother. A child needs a real home. This house is just a material thing. You don't want your sister to suffer, do you?" My mother chimed in, feigning sympathy. "Stella, you've always been the responsible one in this family. We trust you'll do the right thing." I swallowed hard, anger burning through me. For years I had carried burdens without recognition, and now they wanted to turn my rightful property into a gift for their golden child. Charlotte only smiled brightly, her eyes shimmering with entitlement, as if to say, "This belongs to me, not you." I pushed back my chair and stepped outside, breathing deeply in the cold air. Snowflakes fell lightly on the roof, but the icy wind couldn't cool the fury boiling inside me. I thought of my grandmother, of her letter. "Don't let anyone take advantage of you, especially family." She had seen this coming, and now I realized she had prepared me for this battle long before it began. The next day, Charlotte came to my house with a small gift bag, her face glowing. "Stella, I just wanted to share my joy. I know you love me." I looked at the bag, unsure whether to laugh or snap. "Charlotte, this isn't about celebrating. This is my house. It's not for buying you an apartment." She shrugged, her tone infuriatingly innocent. "I know, but Mom and Dad said you'd understand." I don't want to argue, but it was that very tone that lit a fire in me. Charlotte and my parents had made a grave mistake thinking I would bend yet again. I decided then that I would not allow anyone, even blood relatives, to take what I had every right to keep. In the following weeks, I began researching every legal safeguard for the house. I met with lawyers, reviewed inheritance documents and ownership rights, recording every detail so no one could twist the situation. Every conversation with an attorney was like an antidote, sharpening my mind and reminding me I had the right, and it was time to defend it. I also thought about Charlotte. She was going to be a mother, but that didn't give her the right to seize my home. I resolved to keep my distance and not let family pressure sway me. I didn't hate her. I hated the way my parents had used every opportunity to crown her the golden child while casting me as the background character. One snowy afternoon, as I sat in the living room looking out at the yard blanketed in white, I told myself, "Stella, this isn't just a house. It's proof of your freedom, your right to choose. No one, absolutely no one can take that away." I never imagined that a door left slightly ajar could change my entire sense of family. That day, I went upstairs to grab a few books and happened to overhear whispers from the living room. My parents were sitting on the sofa, Charlotte standing beside them, her eyes shining as though she was waiting for their verdict. "Stella will surely refuse, but if we keep pressing her," my mother whispered, her voice dripping with calculation. "I think if we use Charlotte's future as the reason, Stella will soften. We just need to stress that she's about to become a mother, that she needs stability." My father added, his tone flat like he was reading from a script. I froze behind the door, my heart pounding. They were plotting, arranging every step to turn my grandmother's house into a gift for Charlotte, even though I was the rightful owner. Rage surged through my veins, mixing with a raw sense of betrayal. I realized then that all their talk of family, sharing, and love was nothing more than a facade. That evening, I walked into the dining room looking calm, though my eyes betrayed everything I had just heard. My mother greeted me with a sugary smile. Stella, you're just in time. We need to talk about the country house. I paused, drawing in a deep breath. Mom, Dad, I heard everything, all the plans you made behind my back. It's awful that you think I'm so easy to manipulate. The silence was so heavy I could hear a spoon clink against a plate. Charlotte flushed, forcing a smile. You understand, don't you? You know I don't want to fight. I let out a short, sharp laugh. Charlotte, your pregnancy is happy news, but no one has the right to turn my legal property into your gift. No one. And Mom, Dad, you know that. Yet you still plotted behind me. My mother stiffened, but quickly slipped back into her soft voice. Stella, we only want to help Charlotte. You know we're family. Sisters should support each other. I raised my eyebrows. Family? Family means respecting ownership, not forcing someone to give up. I am not a tool for my sister's desires or for my parents' need to control. My father leaned in, his voice hardening. You don't understand, Stella. This is for Charlotte, for her future. You're the eldest daughter you must sacrifice. I cut him off, my tone cold as steel. This house is mine, and I'm not selling it. I've spent years maintaining, restoring, and caring for it. No one has the right to take it from me. No one. Charlotte stayed silent, her face a mix of confusion and regret. My mother's voice trembled. You must understand us. You're the older one. Your sister needs your protection. I rose slowly, stepping toward the table, my eyes blazing with resolve. Protection? What kind of protection is this turning me into a pawn? Thinking I'll cave just because Charlotte is pregnant? I've learned enough from the past. Stella Morrison is not a child to be manipulated anymore. I've endured enough, and now it's time to draw the line. Charlotte burst into tears, not from fear, but from shock. I nothing, Charlotte. This isn't about us. It's about rights. And fairness, I said firmly, my voice steady. I will not sell the house. I will not compromise. And I will not let anyone use family as a tool for their own agenda. My parents exchanged looks. Their faces flushed as if I had just torn away every layer of their plan. My mother stammered, trying to regain ground. Stella, I slammed my hand on the table, my voice thundering. Number. You've manipulated me too many times, but not today. This house is mine, and I'll protect it at all costs. If Charlotte needs a place, find another way, but don't ever think you can take mine so easily. No one spoke again. I stood there, my heart still racing, but an unusual calm settling in. For the first time in years, I felt truly in control. I had overheard their scheme, I had faced them head on, and now I had drawn the boundary. Stella Morrison was no longer the timid girl who always gave in. I was the owner, the decision maker, and I would never again let anyone, even my family, dictate my life. I had just set foot on the wooden steps of the porch when my phone buzzed. A message from a real estate agent popped up. We've scheduled an open house for next Friday, at the request of Mr. and Mrs. Morrison. My blood boiled. My parents, the Morrisons, were using an old key, contacting an agent, arranging to show the very house I had treasured, brick by brick, floorboard by floorboard. They treated my grandmother's house like common property, even though I was the rightful owner. I sank down onto the step, my hands trembling but my mind cold as steel. I couldn't let them do this. This wasn't just about money or ownership. It was a blatant violation of my dignity and autonomy. Grandma Eliza had warned me, protect this house. Don't let anyone take advantage of you, not even family. Her words echoed now, fueling my resolve. I called the agent, my voice calm but cutting. Hello, this is Stella Morrison. I need to inform you that this property is privately owned, and I have never authorized it for sale. Any scheduled showings are canceled. No one, including my parents, has the right to arrange a viewing. The agent hesitated, then replied quickly, "Understood. I'll make a note right away." I hung up, tension still coiled in me. But I knew a phone call wasn't enough. If my parents were truly determined, they would try again, maybe even show up in person, using the old key or roping someone else into helping. I needed something stronger, not just to protect the house, but to make them understand. Stella Morrison was no longer the daughter they could bully into submission. The next morning, I hired a locksmith to change every lock in the house, keeping only one key for myself. Each turn of the key felt like closing a door on the past, the years of being overlooked, manipulated, dismissed. Now, I was opening a new door, one where I was in control. That Friday afternoon, as I sat on the porch sipping hot coffee, a car pulled up. My parents stepped out, Charlotte with them, their faces sour when they realized the old key no longer worked. My mother pounded on the door, her voice sharp. "Stella, open this door right now." I stepped outside, standing tall on the porch, my eyes steady. This house belongs to me. No one has the right to enter without permission. The old keys are useless now. If you want to talk, call me first, not show up here pounding like intruders. My father's brow furrowed, his voice heavy. "Stella, we just want Charlotte to have stability." I cut him off, my tone like ice. "What you want is not my obligation. This house doesn't belong to Charlotte, and it's not a toy for you to hand out as you please. If you want to argue, we'll do it legally, not through schemes." Charlotte shifted nervously behind my mother, but still spoke up. "You don't need to be so harsh, Stella." "No, Charlotte," I snapped. "This time there's no room for soft words. I've had enough. Every attempt to invade my property and my rights will fail. This house is mine, and I will protect it no matter what." I saw my mother bite her lip, her eyes wavering as if she had finally realized my resolve was unbreakable. My father stepped back, frustration etched on his face. Charlotte lowered her head, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I turned back toward the window, the late afternoon sun casting light across my face, showing a Stella who was resolute, no longer the timid girl of the past. But I knew this was only the opening round. My parents wouldn't give up so easily, and Charlotte would surely be armed with new excuses to sway me. I needed a long-term plan, not just to protect the house, but to shield myself from the subtler traps they were bound to set. I sat down, glancing around the room filled with memories, and told myself, no one, not even family, has the right to turn me into a pawn. Stella Morrison will stand firm, and I'll prove that no one can manipulate me again. Inside me, a strange new strength surged, a fusion of anger, determination, and love for the home my grandmother left behind. For the first time in years, I felt truly free to decide, to protect everything that was mine. After the tense days, I knew simply locking the doors wasn't enough. My parents weren't the type to give up easily, and Charlotte would surely find every way to stay the favorite. I needed a proactive move, not just words, but a strategy I had been sharpening for years, using my own real estate expertise to protect the house and the legacy my grandmother left behind. I opened my laptop and created a detailed file on the house, from its construction history to the careful renovations Grandma had made. Every photo, every story was meticulously documented, not just as property details, but as heritage, as memory, as her soul. I set one crucial condition: the buyer must commit to honoring the home's history and preserving its architecture. That night, I called Gabriel Hayes, a 40-year-old investor known not just for his wealth, but for respecting historic properties. I knew I was reaching out to the right person. "Gabriel," I began seriously, "I want you to look at a very special house. It's not just a property, it's my family's heritage. I need someone who will respect it. Not everyone deserves to own it." Gabriel listened, then smiled gently. Stella, when I look at old beams and floorboards, I see more than structure. I see stories, effort, and memory. I wouldn't destroy that. I exhaled, though I stayed cautious. Years of dealing with my parents had taught me their words meant nothing. So I proceeded in secrecy, letting no one, including Charlotte, know. I showed Gabriel the house room by room, telling him the story of each old photograph and heirloom. His attentive eyes reflected genuine respect, and I knew I had found the right match. Quietly, I signed a temporary agreement with Gabriel that gave me full oversight of the sale. Every step from the listing to the contract was handled on my terms. For the first time, I felt both nervous and exhilarated. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was in control. A week later, Gabriel called. Stella, I've got an offer. They're serious buyers and promise to preserve every historic detail. They're willing to pay a fair price. I smiled, my voice steady. This isn't just selling a house, Gabriel. We're safeguarding it. Meanwhile, I kept an eye on my parents. They were still contacting other agents, desperate to interfere, but every attempt failed. I never told them the house was already on the market, they would only try to sabotage it. With each passing day, I felt freer. When Gabriel introduced the buyers to sign, the late afternoon sun poured through the windows. I touched an old photograph of my grandmother, and it felt like she was smiling. Stella, you've learned how to protect what matters. The buyers, a young couple with bright eyes, looked at the house with awe. Their joy in every detail reassured me. I handed them the keys, but not the old ones. These were new, freshly made by me. I trust you'll cherish this home, I said firmly but warmly. It's not just real estate, it's memory and legacy. They nodded and peace washed over me. No more threats, no more fear of intrusion. I had taken the lead and shaped everything my way. When the papers were signed, Gabriel clasped my hand. Stella, I've never seen anyone use strategy the way you did. You didn't just protect a house, you proved your strength brilliantly. I smiled, my eyes unwavering. Thank you, Gabriel, but this is only the beginning. My parents won't stop pushing Charlotte, and I won't miss my chance to defend everything that's mine. That morning, the country house felt unnervingly calm. I stood on the porch, sipping coffee as sunlight streamed through the old oak branches. But deep down, I knew a storm was brewing. Charlotte and my parents, Robert and Linda, had arranged to meet Gabriel, thinking they'd prepare a nursery for Charlotte. They still believed everything was under their control, that I was the obedient daughter they could manipulate. As they walked up the stone path, I stepped forward, draped in a brown sweater, eyes steady and unflinching. Gabriel stood beside me, his expression solemn but respectful. I drew in a deep breath and spoke firmly. Dad, Mom, Charlotte, I have something to say. They froze, exchanged looks, then turned toward me. Charlotte smirked, convinced I had no power to resist. This house has already been sold. I let the words hang in the air, never breaking eye contact. You no longer have any right to interfere. You can't open its doors. You can't make decisions about it. Gabriel nodded beside me, confirming every word. I caught the flicker in my father's eyes, the furrow of Linda's brow, and Charlotte's stunned silence. They were speechless. Stella, my father stammered, his voice trembling. We just wanted to help. I cut him off, my tone sharp as a blade. Help? Selling my house behind my back, meddling with my property, that's your idea of helping? Number? That's blatant trespassing. Charlotte's lips parted, her hand trembling on her pregnant belly, as if the truth had finally hit her. They had banked on me being too afraid, too compliant. Now, their plans collapsed in front of them. Gabriel, I said, turning to him, voice calmer but resolute, show them the paperwork. Gabriel pulled out the full file, the purchase agreement, the preservation clauses, the signed documents proving ownership. Robert tried to step closer, but Gabriel's voice was firm. I'm sorry, Robert, the ownership is finalized. From now on, every decision rests with Stella. Linda's mouth fell open as she clutched her sleeve. Charlotte stood frozen, eyes wide in disbelief. I stepped toward them, my tone steady but unyielding. This is the lesson you need to understand. Grandma's house was never a gift for you to toss around. It's my legal property. Every scheme, every interference is worthless. For the first time in years, they had no rebuttal. A wave of strength surged through me, not because I wanted to defeat them, but because I had finally stood up for what was mine. Stella, Linda whispered, her voice shaking, you mean you'll keep the house? I met her gaze, determination shining. Yes, and I won't allow anyone, not even family, to disrupt what this home stands for. Charlotte faltered, stuttering. But, Mom and Dad, there's nothing left to discuss. I snapped, each word cutting through their false confidence. From now on, I make the final decisions. Those who respect me in this house are welcome. Those who meddle will be shut out. Gabriel gave me a reassuring nod, and in his eyes I saw complete understanding. Together, we had done what my parents thought impossible, turned the tables entirely. In that moment, I felt the shift in my family dynamic. No more favoritism, no more schemes. I was no longer the timid daughter. I was Stella Morrison, a woman who stood tall, defended her rights, and demanded respect, even from her own blood. Charlotte lowered her head, silent. My parents remained stunned, while Gabriel stood by my side, steadfast and resolute. I drew in a deep breath, stepping back onto the porch as sunlight touched my hair. For the first time in years, I felt utterly free. The house was no longer just property. It was proof of my strength, my wisdom, and my resolve. From this day forward, anyone, family or not, would have no choice but to respect that. A few weeks after that explosive confrontation, the country house returned to its usual calm. Yet Stella knew peace wasn't secured by paperwork alone. It required recognition, respect, and clear boundaries. She spent her days sorting through old belongings, restoring the living room, and gazing out at the vast meadow beyond, where the wind whispered its own story. By then, Charlotte had given birth to baby Lily. Watching the infant sleep soundly in her pale blue crib stirred a rush of emotions in Stella. Not because she was expected to care for her niece, but because she understood her role in the family had shifted. She wanted to contribute, but on her own terms, in ways that demanded respect and left no room for manipulation. With the money from the house, Stella established the Stella Morrison Education Fund for Lily. More than just a college fund, it was a safeguard to ensure Lily's right to education, freedom of choice, and encouragement of her talents without unfair expectations. As Stella signed each document, she felt a profound satisfaction. Every signature was proof of the power she had reclaimed and of her promise to protect the next generation. When Robert and Linda visited Lily for the first time, they found Stella in the living room. Gone were the demands and entitlement, only cautious curiosity remained. Stella looked at them, her tone calm but firm. If you want to be part of Lily's life, understand this. Respect and transparency are non-negotiable. Any boundary crossed will be denied. Linda lowered her head, stammering. We understand, Stella. Charlotte, now a young mother, glanced at Stella nervously. You're not angry at us? Stella smiled, not from total forgiveness, but from clarity. It's not about anger. It's about fairness. Family only lasts when built on respect and boundaries. Learn that before thinking of interfering again. The silence that followed was heavy but necessary. For the first time, they saw Stella not as someone to be pushed aside, but as someone who set the terms. In the days ahead, Stella spent more time with Lily, telling her stories about Grandma Eliza and the values she had cherished. Each moment reinforced that Stella's fight wasn't only for herself, but for the future Lily deserved. Slowly, Robert and Linda adjusted. Robert joined parenting classes. Linda held back from overstepping. Even Charlotte began to realize that to earn Stella's respect, she had to give respect in return. One afternoon, as Lily played on the porch, Gabriel stopped by. Standing beside Stella, watching the meadow sway in the breeze, he said softly, "You did the right thing, Stella. Not just for yourself, but for Lily." She turned to him, smiling. "Thank you, Gabriel. I've learned that true strength isn't about control, it's about protecting what's right." Watching Lily laugh, Stella felt at peace. The country house, it was no longer just a property, it was a symbol of her resolve, her wisdom, and her reclaimed power. And Lily would grow up in a world shaped by those lessons, one with respect, protection, and unconditional love without pressure, without conditions. Stella exhaled deeply. She hadn't only safeguarded her grandmother's home, she had reclaimed herself. Most importantly, she had built a future where Lily could walk tall, confident, and free, knowing that family only has true value when balanced with fairness and clear boundaries. Looking back at Stella's journey, we realize that every pain, every form of family pressure became a lesson that made her stronger and wiser. The country house was not only an inheritance, but also a symbol of the power and boundaries Stella learned to protect. Lily grew up in love and respect, free from control and manipulation. Stella's story reminds us that in real life, family bonds only last when built on fairness, clear boundaries, and mutual respect. What do you think about Stella's decision and her journey? Did she do the right thing by protecting her boundaries? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss the next dramatic and emotional family stories.